Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma. I'm doing my best Dan Quinn impression today with the backwards hat, rolling with my best friend, colleague, and pal, Mr. Brian E. Roach. What's going on, B?
I don't have a backwards hat on, and I feel like I need to grab a hat from up there and put a backwards hat on.
I think you should, my friend. I don't know. I was just kind of like, you know me. I like the backwards hat deal, right? And Brian's going to go find one in a second, but this goes back to, and there it is, Brian with the backwards cap. I assume that you're in a jovial mood today on a Victory Monday.
I'm in a better mood than I would have been if it was not a Victory Monday.
Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to say we are so back, Brian. I know that there's some NFL franchises that are out there, Jets, Cowboys, that, our fans complain. We talk about how spoiled we are as Pittsburgh Steelers fans. 7-2. No one else in the league was giving this team any respect, any sort of their due heading into this regular season. Russell Wilson's washed. The Bengals will be better. The Browns will be a better team. The Steelers are going to be in last place in the AFC North. And I know I'm poking fun a little bit at Dan Quinn, but it goes back to, I always wore my hats backwards. It was the starter thing that started it. I've always liked the fitted caps, so I felt like it was apropos today. A happy Veterans Day to you for those maybe observed, and of course, a salute to all of our service people who may be watching or listening wherever you may be. We know some displaced around the world. We appreciate you. Obviously, the Steelers will get their little salute to service, Veterans Day type military whatever themed game this weekend when they play the Baltimore Ravens, but that's far off in it's coming up, but we don't want to go too far from the rear view here. We've got to savor this win for just a moment, but it was good that the Steelers didn't overlook the Washington Commanders coming off of a bye, getting their 7th win of the season on the road against maybe the best opponent that they played this year.
There's no question it's the best opponent they played this year. And I realize I gave them a little more credit in the pregame than they deserve. I really meant to say 30 points on average that they could easily put up. Not saying they have put up 30 points every game, but that they have the offense to do it. I said 40, which was wrong because I think they've only done, and I got pointed out for it in the comments.
You did.
But that's okay. It was my mistake, and I own it. I own it. I don't run from it. I own it. Anyway, be that as it may. It's absolutely the best team that they played all season. Did Jayden Daniels look a little more like a rookie in this game than he has? Yeah, maybe, but not that much. I mean, he made a lot of good decisions. He made a lot of good choices. The Steelers just played a really good game, and you got to give them credit for that. The defense had its problems, but they picked it back up. And they got contributions from the new guys, which is fantastic.
Yes.
And I, got nothing to really complain about other than I'm glad they won, and that's not a complaint.
My only complaint is something that's out of the control of what happened with one Mr. Alex Highsmith, who was having one hell of a game. It's
yes, he was.
I hope it's nothing too serious. I saw that ankle go sideways. Funny story about that. I'm much older than Alex Highsmith, so he might be able to heal a little faster. I mean, I've done this, oh my goodness, even back in like high school or something, but most recently it was just a few years ago. Took my daughter. There was like this group that we're in. It's very kind of Girl Scouts, but it's not Girl Scouts, right? And went to a trampoline park and just totally like on the second or third jump, my ankle did the same thing. It wasn't broken. Said it was one of the worst sprains that you ever saw, but I had to go through rehab the whole 9 yards. It was not a quick process to heal. Took a while. So I'm hoping for the best. Some of these guys, they're in much better athletic condition than moi as an older guy sitting on the couch and just, not participating in daily athletic activities, the jump band stretching, the weight training and everything like that. He may end up maybe more precautionary. I know they put him on crutches, whatnot. You get that swelling down. Just hopefully he's able to come back sooner than later. One might assume that he wouldn't be available for the very next game. And then after that, you got a Thursday night game with the Browns, so he might be out for 2 in a row, which is not good. But thankfully, Omar Khan goes out, gets Preston Smith, who had a nice play or two in this game. The new additions chipping in, all hands on deck. It really looked like a nice team victory. It didn't always feel that way, so we're just going to, kind of bang through some of the different stuff here so we don't overlook anything, starting with maybe the first quarter and the entire first half, because despite the Steelers going up, or being down 7-0, I should say, to start. I know, Brian, we were talking a little back and forth, and it didn't look so hot because you had a punt. You did have the touchdown to George Pickens, which looked like something out of the Matrix with the way Russell just put the ball up, and his players are able to, these guys are able to adjust. He allows the playmakers to make plays.
Code, man. I told you that. He's a cheat code.
Allow the playmakers to make plays, which just all the way across the board. I mean, we saw George Pickens, we saw Pat Freiermuth. We will talk about Mike Williams here momentarily, but just from the very beginning, I know you weren't too happy about, there was the 3-play 9-yard drive. There was a 4-play drive that was -5 yards and a turnover on downs. There was 3 plays for 2 yards. They go into the second quarter, same thing. They're going to punt on this other drive. So you had a punt, the touchdown, then turnover on downs, punt, and a punt, and then come back and they get a touchdown off of like a muffed punt from the Commanders, right? And then punt, and then it was pretty much the end of the half, whereas they gave up 2 touchdowns and a field goal, went into halftime down 17-14. You said some things were going to have to change on defense. You were worried. This was a high-powered Commanders offense. You had Austin Eckler carried in twice, so the run game wasn't stopping anything. Jayden Daniels, they had a hurry-up going too. And when the offense wasn't executing on all cylinders, when the offense wasn't having any kind of extended drives, you're throwing, 35-year-old Cam Hayward back out there, TJ Watt, who's been playing all these snaps. And I know they came off of a bye week. They may have been a little fresher than the opposition, but they still had to go on the road, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't bode well for them, the way that the Commanders were clicking, and then the Commanders were clicking on defense too, and making the Steelers' offensive line look a little silly.
Yeah, that is my biggest concern. Is I was really dissatisfied with the way the offensive line protected and essentially blocked. I did not think the offensive line had a great game. They had their moments where they seemed to get their act together. But man, there were a lot of free runners. Again, maybe this is just communication issues. They're still, again, they have a new lineup again because Zach Frazier's back, even though it's an old lineup. It's just, they've had to go multiple weeks with different guys in the lineup, which is not a good way for the offensive line to gel and get better. But hopefully they continue to grow. I wasn't thrilled with the offensive line play in this game. I thought it would be more improved. Again, this is a team that wasn't great against the run, and in many ways they had problems running the ball. That's not a good look for the offensive line.
No, sir, it isn't. Let's talk about why there was a turnover on downs early in this game. I do like the commentary I am seeing this morning. It's because people are happy because the Steelers won and they beat a team.
If they lost the game, it'd be the exact opposite.
It would be the exact opposite. You wouldn't even get the credit of, I said, good play call, maybe, because it is like the situation, right? Let me pull up exactly where this occurred on the field, because it was in short territory, but you have a very aggressive offense that you're going up against. You're up 7-0 you're up 7-0 to start. They end up there was a 3-and-out and then another, and then you get the ball right back, and the Steelers have the ball on their own 16-yard line, 4th and 15 after Russell Wilson was sacked right out the gate. The one safety, I believe, Luvu, comes in and puts him in a hole. and there wasn't much that you could get out to dig out of that hole. So it's 4th and 15 from the Steelers' 16-yard line, and Miles Killebrew takes a direct snap to throw to, of all people, James Pierre. And the
reason he's a DB.
I would also remiss to say there's a reason James Pierre wasn't on the roster to start the season. Yeah. The guts to make this call, when you want to do a fake, you got to make sure you catch the other team, the opponent, by surprise. So the element of surprise was most definitely there. I think we were all surprised.
Yeah.
Pretty much shocked. And then, Killebrew, he's not a quarterback, but this little pooch pass, and Pierre's wide open right in the breadbasket off the numbers 4 and 2 and onto the ground. And you're just like, oh my goodness, that would have worked. You would have got this drive, keep it going. Maybe you get another 3 points or more, and you could be up 10 or 14-0 in the Commanders' house on this aggressive 7-2 team. And it didn't work out that way. And now all of a sudden you give up some points and it's 7-7. You're like, oh geez, here we go again with this crap, right? And I know you had to be feeling the same way with that. You're just like, now all of a sudden the defense is going to disappear, the offense isn't going to be able to do anything, and we make a special teams blunder.
Yeah, it's like I was just as surprised as everybody else. And the thing is, it worked. It worked, except for the execution by Pierre. James St. Pierre just drops the ball. He's too eager, thinks he's going to go in and they're going to get a touchdown on this, assuming he can make the punt returner miss, right? But you got to execute the play, man. And it was there. So the call, it's a good call. Situational, looking at what they had, knowing that the play is there. And it wasn't 4th and short either. I mean, what was it? 4th and like 13 or 16 or something?
Yes, sir. It was, I just had it. What did I say? 4th and 16? 3rd and 15, 4th and 15. I'm sorry. 3rd and 18. And just a short little, almost draw. It wasn't quite a draw play, but it was the predictable Jalen Warren runs into the pile. Hey, I'm feeling better today. Okay. I'm not as nasally, but I'm cobwebby. Okay. I'll give you that. So, yeah,
it's just it's a good play call. It's understanding the situation you're in. It's looking and seeing that it's there. It's aggressive. I don't have a problem with it all. I have a problem with the fact that it didn't get executed well. But I think that every stage of it is right until it gets in James St. Pierre's hand and he doesn't secure the catch. You got to secure the catch. Down the road, it's a wash because the other guy fumbles the second fumbled punt. So, the first one we didn't get, the second one we got. All right, so that kind of wipes it out, right? It's a wash between those two plays. But I got to say his name, Skornick. I mocked him. I was like, "Who's that guy?" Skornick. Never heard of him.
Ben Skowronek. And James Pierre too. James Pierre tips the ball, and basically Skowronek, who there was a little bit of question here. I don't know if we discussed it. Maybe my cousin. I got to get my cousin on here just one time, just so everybody knows who I'm talking about. With Brad, you'll see him around on Twitter every now and then, cussing about the Steelers games. He was relatively patient and not. You weren't as patient yesterday. You were pissed off about the defense through the first half for sure. But
I was pissed off after the 94-yard drive to end the half, and then the next drive. That's what pissed me off.
Yeah, so we had Ben Skowronek, number 15, playing over Scotty Miller, went inactive. Skowronek called up. He was just brought back from like an injured reserve or something like that, or re-signed to the practice squad, whatever it was. There was some injury designation for him, and then called up. So I don't know if that actually clicked there, Brian, but thank you anyways for making it a little more quiet than usual. But yeah, Skowronek, the guy we made fun of, and we're trying to figure out then on game day, talking in text messages, why is this guy playing over Scotty Miller? And that's why, because he was in the proper position on special teams. What a heads up play. It reminds me of the Godwin Igwebuike, where that ball was like very close to the sideline, and then he stepped out of bounds, laid out and touched it to make it a touchback coming out at the 40. Like, just heads up plays by smart football players, even as well, I would say is maybe diminished your status is. You're like maybe not even on the 53. You're like the 54th guy and you're making plays. This is where it is. All hands on deck where this Steelers team feels like something special is coming together. I know we've got to get into division play here, but as soon as we get out of maybe the next 2 weeks, 2 games, I should say, Ravens and Browns, we're going to really know where they're at when we'll really be able to start talking about whether or not we could start comparing this team to like 05 or 08 or something of that nature. I feel like the defense could start getting there. I know that the first half, yeah, you're gifted this, right? You're gifted this muffed punt and you're still not completely sold. The thing that we always hate, defer. And it's
defer.
Like Tomlin playing aggressive, man. He should have known right out the gate he was going to be aggressive yesterday because he took the ball first, and it's just like, oh, geez, man. If you're ever going to do that, you want the ball on the road second half while everybody's still like in the line trying to get some nachos or something, you know.
He was definitely on his he was on his oats and vinegar yesterday. He was, I don't know whether he took the little blue pill before the game or what, but he was pumped up and he was aggressive and he was definitely fired up to make this game happen. I mean, I think DC is kind of like his hometown sort of. Isn't William and Mary there? I don't know. Anyway, I think it's kind of a homecoming maybe a little bit for him. And I think it was important that they show their stuff. I like that version of Mike Tomlin. I didn't like taking the ball because I don't like taking the ball and going 3 and out. It's like that set my mood early, right? First, why didn't you defer? Defer. I hate this nonsense. Always defer. But if you're not going to defer, you can't go 3 and out. It just can't.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the worst part of it is you want to be aggressive. You want to get on top of everything. Yeah, not too far. I mean, it's an okay distance. What, hour and a half? Williamsburg is where Williams and Mary is, which is southeast of Richmond. So I think Richmond's at least maybe 90 minutes. Well, definitely with traffic. All right, I-95 traffic's no joke going down from DC to Richmond, but. For all the, I'd like to hear some people in the comments every now and then. I met a guy in one of these like Facebook movie groups, and he always sends me like random clips because he's driving all over, and it's like, I've been everywhere, man, like the Johnny Cash kind of song. So if there's anybody that's got some traffic stories, I avoided most of that when I went to Atlanta this year. I was just laughing. I was sharing stories, made me think of that. So yeah. Anyways,
enough of my own.
Yeah, the homecoming. It's funny because it's Dan Quinn, Mike Tomlin, that William and Mary team. It's like, did they have any idea that they were producing? That's the real coaching tree right there, right? And then not McVay, McDermott, Sean McDermott up in Buffalo, also on that squad too, or one of those squads played with Mike Tomlin. I don't know if he overlapped with Dan Quinn too, but. It's just amazing to me to go back and look at that. And we're not talking about like Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, any of the Florida State, Florida. Yeah, William and Mary. Like, it's such a tiny program. It's really cool to see how some of that. Obviously, they got an imprint from the coaches that were on that staff. I'm gonna have to really do a deep dive on that, maybe in the off season. So, but we get to halftime, okay, and the Steelers, They lost the lead they had. They had the edge after the muff punt, 14-7. They gave up a 6-play 40-yard drive. Only took about 2 minutes for Jayden Daniels and them. They did get held down to just a field goal, Zane Gonzalez, 48 yards. But then it was 15 plays, 94 yards, the entirety that was left of that second quarter, almost down to like a second or so where they knelt and went in for halftime. Almost 5.5 minutes of game time, obviously longer in real time, go down 3 points, 17-14 to go into halftime. Then they come out of half and give up 5 plays, 71 yards. First time they've given up points in the third quarter all year, and now they're down 2 scores, 10 points, 24-14.
Yeah, that's what set my teeth on edge and aggravated the hell out of me. And that's when I texted, something's got to change on the defense. The RPO stuff was killing them in that drive. They just weren't adjusting well to it. And I hadn't realized that St. Pierre was in, right? I didn't realize.
Hold on a second. You did that again.
Injury.
I know you're an older. You could tell you've been in. I don't want to say older necessarily, but you've been a Steelers fan for many years. When you reference,
I'm old. I don't care.
St. Pierre, Brian St. Pierre.
Yeah, I know. As far as I'm doing that on
James
purpose because I don't like him. He's St. Pierre because I don't like either one of them.
That's funny.
Even though it sounds like I'm mistaking his name, I'm actually doing it on purpose. And he just the same. Well, there's somebody else I called a different name that I didn't like. I don't remember what it is. But anyway, he's no. I like Skoranek now. He's my best friend in the whole world except for you. Maybe it was might have been Switzer. Could have been run around Switzer.
Oh, who knows? Gunnar Olszewski or something.
Yeah, Gunnar. Anyway, St. Pierre will forever now be St. Pierre. St. Pierre, I didn't realize he was in, so I didn't realize that, our other starter was hurt. Hopefully that's not as severe. I think it's a hamstring though, so.
Yeah. Dante Jackson with the hamstring. It was like, why is Pierre in? Why is he covering Scary Terry, McLaurin? Man, some of those throws, I'll tell you, Jayden Daniels.
Let me tell you something.
What?
Joey Porter got a little schooled in that game. He was very handsy, and I will tell you that he deserved the penalties he got.
Maybe one or two. I don't know about that. I can't tell if that face mask actually happened.
The face mask one, they didn't show it clearly enough on the replay for me to swear, yes, he deserved the face mask. The interference penalties,
I don't know. That one near the end zone. That one near the end zone where McLaurin, and they're like, oh, well, they're making contact. McLaurin comes right in to initiate that contact and then falls down on the ground and Joey's backs out. Those are the kind of ones where I think you should swallow your whistle and just let them play.
I agree with you on that one. It's legitimate, but it's aided because this is why I say Joey Porter got schooled by Terry McLaurin, right? Scary Terry came in and said, you're a second-year guy. I'm older, and I'm wiser, and I know what to do. And he eked out that second penalty from the ref by assisting the look of it. If he doesn't fall, if he doesn't go to the ground, I don't think the flag gets thrown, right? But because he goes to the ground and gets the Oscar nomination, gets it. Was it interference?
A little bit of a veteran
probably,
play there, maybe.
But I think that they could have let it go.
Joey has a reputation, obviously, and you got to say too, even though we're making fun of, I guess we're going to call him St. Pierre. He's St. Pierre today. If he would have caught that ball, he'd be St. Pierre for sure. He's right there with all the immaculate stuff, right? But this one, if he
caught that ball, I'd have given him his name. I'd just call him Pierre.
There's this other one where it dings off his helmet or off the other guy's face mask, and you're just like, hey, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. You know what I mean? So
that one was that ball was underthrown.
Yeah.
Russ had a couple of those too, where he just underthrew and would have had a more option had he got a little more air under the ball. But, I'm not going to complain about those. It wasn't the cleanest game for Russ. I know we haven't gotten around to that side of it either. It was not Russ's best game, but it was good enough.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I was saying before that the playmakers were making plays earlier. The second touchdown, the Pat Freiermuth, such a great little route. You had, I almost called him Allen Robinson because he's wearing 11, but Van Jefferson kind of stands there like a statue, make sure there's no flag for a pick.
Semi-pick,
yeah, where he just turns, stays stationary. That's smart because if you've got some movement there or your hand or arm comes free, that goes back to the Joey Porter stuff where you're a known accomplice of being flagged for certain penalties. You're known as kind of like, it reminds me of Michael Irvin with the Dallas Cowboys, where you knew to look for that little shove, that little, he's going to give you a little iggy here, and then make a catch, create a little space for himself. And then they started looking for it once somebody pointed it out. Right. And we've got some other stuff to say because the officiating was not exactly sharp in this game for a multitude of things that occurred, right? I'm not sure that I've gotten to that exact spot in the game yet. The Steelers would score a touchdown following the Commanders scoring. So you actually got them back within 3 points, 24-21. And then the Commanders at the end of the third quarter would score again off of 41-yard Zane Gonzalez field goal. But there was some concerns. There was some flashbacks, maybe like we had said, to maybe some other Pittsburgh Steelers teams. And particularly that game in Denver, maybe not as dire of consequences. It's not the single elimination, but the Steelers have this huge drive that's 14 plays, 86 yards down to the 1 yard line. And Jaylen Warren coughs it up with a fumble. And I'm sitting there like, did this really happen? Was there not a whistle? And between the officiating crews, there's not consistency enough, I believe, because like we were complaining just a few weeks ago, let Najee finish off some of these runs. They're blowing the whistle too fast. And now in this one, we get it the other way where it's like they didn't blow it too fast. They're going to let somebody go. I believe the guy that was, I can't remember who the guy is that's doing is it Terry McAuley maybe that does the referee perspective on the CBS broadcast. And he had said, yeah, I probably would have blown that. Probably met the criteria to have that play blown dead. And you're like, great, this team just squandered this. They blew half the quarter here. 7 minutes left in the game. Well, they have an opportunity to get this ball back and do something with it. And by all means, they did. They forced a 3 and out on defense. Brian was once again happy. The Commanders really did much of nothing on offense most of the second half. You had the touchdown drive that opened the half, but after that, 5 plays, 71 yards. You had 3 for 0, 7 for 19, 4 for 12, 3 for 4. The final drive, 6 for 23. Steelers defense found themselves in this game.
Yeah, you started to get pressure. As I texted you at one point, Big Cam at one point just said, F this stuff. And just went and plowed through. I mean, Cam had a really nice game. TJ is freeing stuff up for everybody else because there was 2 to 3 guys on TJ most of the game. And again, as is every time is the case, what happens when they go one-on-one with him, he gets his hand on Jayden Daniels' arms and causes an errant throw, right? It's like, and they're like, nope, that's it. Dan Quinn had a plan for this game that he was like, I'm not going to say that I'm not going to let TJ Watt wreck this game.
No,
I'm not saying any of those dumb things, but guess what? I'll put half of my offensive line on him to make sure he doesn't wreck this game.
Every time Eckler on a pass play, Eckler would come out off that corner, either from the backfield or they put him just right out on the end, off the tackle or the tight end. He was chipping TJ every single time before making a route. Every tight end was too. They were getting a body on him right at the line to try and slow him down just that half second or whatever it might be. But I would be remiss to mention that I thought this game was going to go a little bit differently before we get the ball back for a game-winning touchdown drive, because TJ Watt was held down there on the Washington had the ball on the 1.
Yes.
Should have been a safe penalty and a safety.
Calling penalties in the second half. They were like, we're going to call everything in the first half. And when we get to the second half, I mean, we all know that when it's TJ, holding is a myth. They just don't call it. And so they certainly weren't going to call it to give us 2 points, right? But they just don't. It's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. And then you had there was 2 incomplete passes, and some of them were off the mark, and some of them people will probably think, well, that you're just getting lucky with a rookie QB. And you hit the nail on the head. You had Cam Hayward in Jayden Daniels' face. You had Alex Highsmith in his face. You had TJ Watt. Preston Smith had a really nice run stopper tackle somewhere along this, and then also was putting some pressure on. So, I was thinking about this too. Russell Wilson, you said didn't have the best of games. He threw that interception, but I felt like that was more just like a punt almost. I didn't want to attribute that to, Russell Wilson, he threw a pick, but 3 touchdown passes. When's the last time we could say the Steelers quarterback did that in a game? 28 points. I think the over, they just missed. Remember, it was 45.5, 28 and 27. Let's pull it out.
That'd be 45.
Yeah, it would be 45. We're going to do That's with Brian. We've got it back. Yay.
Yay. It's because 28
Just
and 28 is 46, so 28 and 27 is 45.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, because one less or one fewer.
There you go.
Anyways,
It's one less.
Russ only completed 50% of his passes, but a lot of those were deep balls that didn't connect, and those were enough to at least be a threat to back that team away a little bit.
You know that was setting me off, too. Yeah. They were too in love with the deep ball yesterday. It felt like there had to be stuff underneath at times when they just needed to maintain the drive and move the ball. It's like, up, there it goes. Those are not, I mean, they even mentioned it in the broadcast, right? They're like, oh, if you're going to do that low priority or low, confidence throw to Calvin Austin, the Commanders are going to take that every time, right? Because there is a low chance of success. I was getting extremely frustrated that every ball was going deep. I love I'm just like everybody else. I love when it gets completed, but man, you gotta mix those things in. It can't be every time.
Yeah,
especially because he had no time, right? He doesn't have a lot of those were miscues. They were off. They weren't the best of his throws because he has to hurry them. Again, there was pressure. This is a legitimate team. The Commanders are a good team.
Yeah,
credit.
Yeah, and besides Russ, I was going to be remiss to say a returning Cameron Sutton also getting some contributions here on the defensive side of the ball. I was going to look at his snap count because Beanie Bishop, as we were talking to or was hinted, still had a pretty solid role here throughout the game. Taking a look at it,
almost gave up a touchdown if the guy didn't drop it.
Yeah, he had a couple dropsies here or there. Like I said, sometimes better to be lucky than good, right? And Bishop plays over half the game, 52%. Cam Sutton comes in, plays 30%. And surprisingly, Peyton Wilson was a guy that only ended up playing about 20%. A lot of it was scheme. Patrick Queen. Oh, man, we've got to mention Patrick Queen here. So Patrick Queen, I believe this was the best game by Patrick Queen in a Pittsburgh Steelers uniform to date, easily.
I wouldn't disagree with that. It scared me a little because he was holding his arm at one point, and I'm like, oh man, he can't get hurt. But yeah, he had a really solid, nice game.
Yeah. It just, like I said, it was almost like all hands on deck. You had Porter came out, I think, just for the penalty, just one play. One of those penalties he ended up coming off from. And TJ plays 56 to 64 defensive snaps. That's 88%. You also had Cam Hayward, Keanu Benton, and Alex Highsmith all at 80 or higher. Dante Jackson played about 70% before he left. Deshaun Elliott, Landon Roberts played a lot more because they were trying to bottle up Jayden Daniels, who they prevented from running the football. It was like a complete polar opposite here when we're talking about a team that ran the football well on offense and a quarterback who ran well. Just 3 carries for 5 yards by Daniels in this one. Eckler had the 2 TDs, but only 13 for 44 yards collectively, 22 carries for 60 yards, a 2.7 average, whereas the Steelers, Najee was plodding along. It was tough sledding. The offensive line was struggling in a lot of spots with Harris. Luckily, he looked like he might have got dinged too, and you're like, oh, Warren provided a spark. Yep. Warren leads the team, 14 carries, 66 yards, a 4.7 average. Harris, 21 for 53, a 2.5, which is by far, I think, his worst this year if I were looking
game this year, yeah.
Yeah, 43 carries overall by the Steelers. You had 3 by Patterson, then 1 by Pickens, 1 by Russell, or technically 4 by Russell Wilson, because then you have the kneel downs and stuff too, right? But it's 43 run attempts to 28 passes, 43 carries, 140 yards. That is some Arthur Smith football. That's trying to be a bully. That's trying to control the clock. That's trying to set a tone. Even despite some of the deep passing and stuff like that, it works when you finally do connect on some of them. You just throw it in George Pickett's direction, and it tends to work out, right? So we discussed what ends up happening was Jaylen Warren fumbles, and you have a near safety, missed penalty, missed opportunities. The Commanders actually had a holding play that was half the distance that brought them back on 2nd and 6, the 2nd and 8. Luke McCaffrey, a little misfire there. Probably should have been another holding penalty there. Third down, he ends up missing Eckler due to TJ Watt's presence there. So Watt all over the place, being disruptive. Even if they were limiting him statistically on the box score, it doesn't look like he did a whole lot. He does enough. Now you have Tress Way punt the ball 60 yards. You're like, holy cow, man, right? And beyond this, some of the special teams plays. Let's talk about Kelvin Austin. Let's rewind for 1 second. I love that special teams guys on punt return, they're looking at the punt returner. You can't see where the ball is in the air. You're relying on this guy, and he fakes it like really well and nearly got his clock cleaned. But it rolled ever so slightly past the pylon and overthrew it to be a touchback. Man, if that would have rolled out like the 2 or the 1 just short of the goal line, that would have been another like, what in the hell is going on here? So it's pretty cool to see some smarts there on the special teams. Danny Smith also, he's got like Wolverine or a cat or something attacked him. The old Nick Fury.
I noticed that too.
Thing. Yeah, he had the Flurgan or whatever scratch him across the eye. I was like, what's going on, Danny? And then he's like a squirrel in hibernation with all the gum that's in his mouth. So it looks like he's like swollen in the face and then has a scratch. It was like, he looks like a prize fighter out there. And boy, was he hot when Pierre didn't end up getting it. But the rest of the way, they got the ball right back and he was hot again. And he's got that clipboard. I love seeing it. But the Steelers now get the ball back 5:46. And Najee Harris gets banged up and they have an illegal formation. You immediately go to 1st and 15. And then Najee runs the ball right out of this one to make it 2nd and 16 because he loses a yard. And you're just like, is this team going to do it? And I think you feel a little more confident than when it was Trubisky or Pickett or even my dude Mason Rudolph or even Justin Fields.
Little?
I don't know that Justin Fields could have. I don't know, but you still, did you feel like you had, like when Ben Roethlisberger would go, no, you know, Ben's in there. They got this. You know what I mean? I think there's still some skepticism as to whether or not Russ got it. You know what I mean? And this just proved to be very.
That is a very viable point, right? Is I don't know that we can guarantee. You're starting to feel that confidence that it's okay. It's okay. Russ has got this. You don't know it, and again, this is a game where the examples are because Russ ran around and got sacks. He took sacks that he probably shouldn't have taken. He got rid of the ball some too, but you know he ran around and took some sacks, and he you know, so you can't swear. Okay, I feel good. But there's that hint, right? There's that hint that's in your gut going, no, I think I don't need to feel despondent at 3rd and 16. Russ can make it happen. It's okay. I don't need to be like, oh, well, we're just going to punt, right? Whereas the last 3 years.
And not even a good punter.
Right.
Then you bring Presley Harvin out.
We're going to punt. He's going to go 30 yards. It's going to be a shank. This is a nightmare. Oh, my God. Right? You don't have that feeling right now anymore, which is really nice.
I'll tell you what, man. You've known this for many years. I've always praised Russell Wilson. I was still even when he signed and it meant Pickett was leaving and Rudolph was leaving and, you know, all the things you heard about Denver not getting along with Coach Sean Payton and the things about being a teammate, man, that's all called into question now, isn't it? It's like, it's just a bunch of bad coaching there. I know it's still just 3 games, could turn into a pumpkin at any point, but it just seems like even though he doesn't even throw for 200 yards, it's 3 touchdown passes. He excels in the red zone. And what do the Steelers do? They excel at defense and trying to give you short fields. It just seems like the play calling and the quarterback decision-making and unlocking all of these playmakers, including the one here at the end. Now, I heard just a little bit about this. Calvin Austin gets hurt, and you're just like, great, another one, right? Another guy. Now it's going to start being one of these games. They're going to be short-handed. So maybe Mike Williams has to come in a little bit, and he played just a handful of snaps here or there. He actually only plays 9 for the entire game. Now, he comes in, 30-year-old veteran, guy that's put up yards, put up touchdowns, prolific college career when he came into the pros. Definitely somebody, it's almost like the Christmas wish list. There's several players now that are like on this roster or the Steelers have trialed, and it was like, man, if they could just get that guy. It's like, now you got Russell Wilson. Now you got Mike Williams. I'd be remiss to say that I still like guys like McLaurin. There's a few other players I look at on the other side with the Commanders. It's like, oh, I really like that guy coming out. I was watching that Lions game last night too, and I still look at Jack Campbell and Brian Branch and guys like that. There's some football players that you just kind of admire because they're really good. They're great, or that you could see their growth, and they're guys that you followed. They were guys you were rooting for. And Mike Williams was like one of those guys. Russell Wilson's another one of those guys where it's like, I still have his photo up there, right? I'm like, oh, Russell Wilson in a Steelers jersey, but then you're like, Russell Wilson. It's like that the meme where it's like the guy like looks away and then he's like, then he points. It's like Russell Wilson in a Broncos jersey. No, Russell Wilson in a Steelers jersey, pointing this way.
Yeah.
And he tells Mike Williams to run a specific route. And I didn't see. Let me see if it's got here in the book who he torched. It didn't say who was in coverage, but 32 yards. He was so wide open.
Pretty. It was very pretty.
And Russ has got guys in his face and just knows he told Williams to go. He saw something that was in that defense earlier. The veteran quarterback just puts it up and lets the playmakers make plays. You're not going to expect Mike Williams to come in with maybe 2 days of practice, 3 days of practice. I don't know how soon he got into town. Probably living out of a hotel. And got to learn a new playbook, Arthur Smith, all this other stuff, right? He's not ingrained in this yet. But maybe in the red zone, run this route, do this, get a first down, just some type of contribution. He couldn't have made a bigger contribution than this go ahead, walk off, game-winning drive, touchdown pass from Russell Wilson.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I mean, it's funny. He's like, no, they're asking him, did you run that route in practice? He's like, no, I didn't run that route in practice. Calvin was always running that route. I've never run that route since I got here. And but Russ told me to run it, so I ran it and looked over, caught the ball, end of story, right? He's got to be thrilled, right? To come in, and you could tell in his reaction after scoring and everybody else on the team's reaction. Like it's one of those years where you want to think something is going on. I'm cautious. So you said the next two. I need to see the next three. They don't have to win all three of those AFC North games. They got to beat the Ravens, right? But I don't, if they drop one out of those three, it depends on how they look if they drop it. I would love it if they won the next three games. But those three games are going to tell me a lot more about where we're going to end up than anything that's come before.
The rough one's going to be Cleveland following. Actually, the next one's going to be
Cleveland
rough too.
Following ball. The next one, look.
This was a physical game.
Baltimore is a team that's putting up points like crazy, right? I don't know how many, so I'm not going to say. But a lot. I just know that they're beating people up and end up and a lot of times they need it though, because their defense has been giving up points, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Big leads and then it's close in the second half, and and we've had Baltimore's number, right? And we're not going to have it forever. At some point they're going to win, right? So we'll see. No,
that's not possible. Lamar Jackson is incapable of beating the Pittsburgh Steelers. It does worry me.
Let's hope that stays the same.
Does worry me missing Alex Highsmith when you got to go up against Derrick Henry, right?
Well, my fingers are crossed that our boy Nick gets back.
It might help, but Preston Smith definitely helps against the run. By the way, Baltimore 31.8 points per game. I'm not sure if that's updated, but at least going into the weekend, first in the league, numero uno as far as scoring points. You're right, their defense is a little leaky. But I mean, this was a good benchmark. It's just, man, was this a physical game? And this one against Baltimore is going to be physical. And by the time you have to take a road trip on a short week to Cleveland, like for another divisional game, that kind of has me, that will have me semi-concerned. Cleveland had a bye week this week, so you don't know exactly what they're going to do heading into this, but they're going to be able to get semi-healthy. They're going to play, and then they got to play on a short week against the Steelers. I mean, I'm going to check and see who the Browns have in the interim.
I was about to ask you that question. Who they play this week?
But yeah, and I got to get to the final plays of this game, man. It's like, let's see here. Where is their schedule? We've got... they just played the Chargers. That was no less physical. Oh, they got to go to New Orleans, so I won't say it's the most physical. They get to play in a dome. They're not going to have elements, anything of that nature. But
they could win that game. Jameis Winston coming back to New Orleans and wanting to. They could win that game.
Jameis Winston revenge game. I mean, they finally put up over 20 points in a game. The previous game, and then Winston against the Ravens, and then Winston turned into a pumpkin. So we'll see what they do against the real defense. But we're looking way far ahead, way down the road here, right?
Yeah.
getting back on track for this game, yeah, that is true. And it's 4 AFC North games in a row. Ravens, Browns, Bengals, then Browns again. So they get the Bengals with the mini bye and then on the road during the Turkey Day holiday. You're up a point, and now you're like, let's see what they could do. And Alex Highsmith gets injured on the play where he's chasing down Jayden Daniels. I want to finish my complete sentence here, too. For a young quarterback, Jayden Daniels, he's smiling and having fun, man. He's like, that's a guy that's real easy to just look at and be like, whoa. You know what I mean? So hats off to him. He's got a long way to go, in his career, but this early chapter in that book looks pretty promising. He does find Noah Brown. They get to the 2-minute warning. So now they're out to the logo. Dante Jackson's now ruled out of the game as an injury update. So Noah Brown torched James Pierre there for 14 yards. Then James St. Pierre, I should say. And then he goes to go find Noah Brown again, doesn't get there. I think TJ Watt at some point here, the ball gets spiked up in the air and TJ nearly has a pick.
Yeah, nearly has a pick. Yeah,
which would have been pretty incredible in and of itself, right? Then you go to 3rd and 9. He couldn't find Noah Brown. That's the play I was referencing earlier where James Pierre ends up off the face mask, off his helmet, whatever. He just gets his nose in there, and it was just enough. There wasn't a flag. There wasn't any other silliness or insanity. And we get to 4th and 9, and you have Daniels looking for Zach Ertz, and he gets almost all the way to the line of gain, just short. I saw where they marked it. Both sides marked it short. Replay is going to get involved automatically here, and you're just waiting for them to overturn this. And I didn't see how they could overturn what was actually called on the field. The ball was behind Ertz's body, not ahead of it. Had he been able to turn instead of back into as he was going down, he probably
doesn't
gets
it with his knee down and touched. Mm-hmm. The ball is not over the line, and it was clear in the replays, right? I thought for sure he had it based on looking at it live. I actually thought he had it, so I give the refs credit for making the right call. I didn't see his knee go down right away. I just saw him turn, but then when they slowed it down and you see him catch it, knee goes down and it touches on him, and he hasn't turned enough yet. The ball is short, and they got it right.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the way the cookie crumbles, but the Commanders still have all 3 of their timeouts.
Yeah.
And the Steelers now at least have to force them to burn all 3 timeouts and then get a first down. Najee Harris gets 3 yards, a little chunk at the first part, and then loses a yard on second down. And the clock keeps ticking, but it only goes from 112 to 108. And then Cordarrelle Patterson, just short himself. It's like he bumps into Samalu, I believe. If Samalu could have just turned and just made a little bit more of a pathway, he probably gets a few extra feet there, gets the first down, game over. So it's 4th and 1, and you're out in midfield, and you're up a point, and you're like, okay, Mike Tomlin has been very aggressive in this game, but could he possibly go for it in this? You can't go for it here. And they get in this prolific offense, gets 10 yards. And I know it's Zane Gonzalez, but he's already banged in two from 40 plus. And then, I know Washington doesn't have their timeouts, but they run the ball, spike, allow there to be 3 seconds at home, kick it through. And, it doesn't end up being Denver where they get the field goal blocked by Kansas City to keep Kansas City unbeaten. But, you couldn't hope. That's what you didn't want to go for. And Russell Wilson lines up. And we talked about Jerzon, Johnny Newton, rookie, Illinois, jumps offside. Neutral zone infraction. It worked, Brian. After a timeout, the Steelers
are like, I can't believe that worked. It never works. I can't believe that worked. But it worked.
I was stunned by it because I'm like, okay, what are we doing coming out of a timeout here? It's like, okay, the Steelers had 2 timeouts, I believe, remaining. So they could have easily burned one and then decided to punt it away. And I'm like, are they really going to run a play here? And this goes back to, this is gamesmanship. This is Mike Tomlin taking the ball first. This is Mike Tomlin running a fake punt in no man's land where you should never down in distance and time of game where you should do a fake punt. This is Mike Tomlin being aggressive offensively throughout the game, and that got into the psyche of that defense. And Russell Wilson, the veteran that he is, give it up to Zach Frazier, rookie into center too, being able to draw that defensive penalty, first down, ball game. You couldn't be any more happy or excited for how that played out. You don't have to punt the ball back away. You don't have to see what the defense looks like without Alex Highsmith or without Dante Jackson. You don't have to worry about losing any other players to injury in that interim, running around the field trying to make some crazy plays. They get to put this in the back pocket, 28-27, 7-2, where no one thought they would be. We thought playoffs, at least 10 wins based on the way this division, the way the conference is. They're now, with 8 games remaining, they just need 3 to get there. What's that?
I know at least 2 guys who thought they might be 7-2 at this point.
We thought, I think if I pull that
we might have even had them 8-1. But
I think, Brian, to be completely honest, if I pull this up, let me see if I can find the old prediction sheet here. Okay, we had them pretty much winning all the way to Dallas, 4-1. And then we didn't have them losing until they go to Cleveland Thursday Night Football.
Yeah,
that's incredible. We're homers, but we just looked at it from the schedule standpoint of, you thought Cincinnati was going to be a stronger team. Cincinnati's offense is Burrow's playing lights out. He's not the problem. He's not the problem there whatsoever. Defense. It's most certainly. And Philadelphia still looks like they're probably going to be a handful. They were able to put Kenny Pickett in. Who knows? Because Dallas is just a dumpster fire right now. You lose 2 games by 3 points. We said, is that bullish? Is that overly ambitious? We have them at maybe 12 wins. They've got 5 more to go out of 8 games. Can they go 5-3 over the next? They very well could be. Where does that place them? Buffalo's still hot. Kansas City's still hot. Only one team gets the bye right now. So
sticking to this. Knock on wood, nothing else dramatic happens. They get Alex Highsmith back. They're going to beat Kansas City.
Man, I tell you, Kansas City, again, better to be lucky than good sometimes. And not to say that they're not a good football team.
They are a good team.
But they've escaped a couple of these games easily.
So let me. What has happened to Andy Reid's mentality that he has allowed himself to just be a doofus in all of Patrick Mahomes' commercials, right? This is a Hall of Fame coach who's just like, Bundarooski. And I'm like, you just, and what, wasn't there one where he was like drawing mustaches on people? He's a bozo in these commercials. And it's hilarious.
It's not like he needs to simp for the money either. He's a multi-million-dollar. How long has he been coaching in the NFL? Like 30 years?
Forever. Like
millions and millions of dollars that he's made. And we'll see. Belichick's starting to do it too, though. And he's got like a 20-year-old girlfriend. So, that guy, he's got all his rings.
He's overdosing the blue pills.
He's got a bag of them like some M&Ms.
Yeah, he's eating Viagra and Cialis like they're M&Ms. Exactly.
Well, Brian, we'll see if you and I get back together. I got to give a shout out to Flash. He woke up a little late. I just had, it's Veterans Day. I needed to get there. I know he's excited. I know he's excited about the new additions. I know he's excited about 7-2, and he's geeked up for Ravens week. One of these days, we're going to do.
This would be the perfect week to get us all 3 on.
All 3. I almost said like a 3 something or a 3-way. That's what Skyline Chili has. They have the 3-way.
I love you guys, but I'm not doing a 3-way. I'll do a 3-headed monster, but I'm not doing a 3-way.
The 3-headed monster. Well, Brian, monster. Any closing thoughts, my friend?
Here's the only closing thought I will leave you this. I didn't think that the Steelers defense had its best game, but they absolutely didn't have their worst. I was just thinking about this. I don't know the numbers, but I would bet you if you look this up, this is probably the worst offensive game that the Commanders have put forth. I told you, they don't punt. I've watched too many of their games. They don't punt, and they had 3 and outs. They had series that didn't. They had to punt during this game. So I want to give some credit to the defense that even though I don't think it was their best game, it was by far not their worst, and a solid game by them against what has been a very tough out for people.
You are correct, my friend. This was, for the Commanders, their worst total offensive output, 242 yards on the season. The second closest was against the Buccaneers at 299. That's
50-something yards less.
Yeah. This was their second worst rushing performance. The other one would have been against the Baltimore Ravens, and some of that's game script and having to throw the football. They threw for 253 against Baltimore, who was also, that was the second, or close to the second fewest, third fewest. The Ravens allowed 305. Everyone else was 350 to 400. Like I said, they had 5 games of at least 400 yards or more on offense. First downs, the Steelers were tied with the Browns at 19. The Ravens only gave up 18 to them. So there's a lot to be said there, a lot going around. They did give up 312 yards Steelers had of offense. As mentioned earlier, only 172 passing, 140 rushing, 312. Their defense for the Commanders had given up a lot more, but really just a smidgen more to the Giants. But most recently, some of those were earlier in the season. So, this was a game all the way around for both of these teams, to be completely honest. And I think the Steelers, offensively, it wasn't like their best look, but they made the most of what they were given with some of the short fields, some of the opportunities they had. They scored off of turnovers, things that, no one's talking anymore about whether Russell Wilson should be playing over Justin Fields. Now everyone's talking about, look, they went and got this guy, gave him a chance. A lot of people are backtracking and say, hey, I was wrong about Russell Wilson. Yep. And we were cautiously optimistic, but a lot of what we were looking at was, you just looked at this defense on paper and you're like, what are these teams like the Giants going to do, or the Broncos, or what are they going to do against this defense? If you could at least we saw the struggle it was with the Matt Canada offenses, and then we saw a little bright spot after that with Mike Sullivan and Eddie Faulkner sharing the duties and splitting between Pickett and Mason Rudolph, that maybe they could get some of this going, right? And then we saw some of it. We saw some flashes with Justin Fields. He had a great game against the Chargers, but you saw some of the ugliness. Colts get up early. Cowboys, despite all their turnovers, still end up winning that game. It's not going to be what could have been. I really feel like this team, their floor is very high for this season. It would take something very catastrophic, as you said, knock on wood and all this other stuff, that doesn't happen. They usually compete very well and are built to play against the AFC North, and that's the large part of their schedule that's remaining. There's only one other AFC team, the Chiefs, that's on this schedule, right? They lost one. They have one loss in the AFC total. They picked up wins over the Broncos, the Chargers, the Raiders, and the Jets. So they have 4 wins just right there. So that's going to mean a lot when it comes to playoff seeding, maybe home field and whatnot. But this next one coming up, absolutely paramount, because you got to beat the Ravens to have that head-to-head tiebreaker. And hopefully not only, let's get a home playoff game for the first time.
Could we please?
With fans. 2017 would have been with fans. 2020 was the, COVID and didn't end up having anybody there, which was unfortunate. I still think that game is way different if you have fans in attendance against Cleveland Browns. But, what else are you going to say about that? It's nice to see the Steelers. We always said that they were reloading instead of rebuilding, and then they put these other pieces in place, like Mike Williams. Preston Smith had that sack as well, and you just see the contributions coming through. So we're bullishly optimistic here. Time to put a bow on this, Brian. Thanks once again for joining me, my friend.
Happy to be here on a Victory Monday.
Always happy to be here on a Victory Monday. We're happy to have you here as well, wherever you may be watching or listening from. We appreciate you supporting Steel City Underground. If you haven't already, leave a rating or review wherever you might be following this show from. Follow us on social media. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. My name is Joe Kuzma. His name's Brian E. Roach. Until next time, folks, we encourage all of you out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.